Okay, I think, Nikila, would you mind letting people in if there's still more? Okay. Okay, then I'll go ahead and get started. Can everyone hear me okay? Perfect, okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our RTAP bi-monthly webinar series. My name is Peyton, and I'm a GRA at KUTC. Please feel free to add your names and agencies in the chat box so we can all get acquainted. I will just go over some housekeeping before introducing the speakers. Please remember to keep yourself muted during the duration of the presentation. There will be a Q&A session at the end, but if you do have questions during the presentation, put them in the chat box so we can address them. I'm sure everyone will have plenty of questions during this webinar, but just a reminder to keep the questions about BlackCat and reporting and filling out the documents. I'll be adding my email to the chat box in case you run into technical difficulties, but feel free to reach out with any other concerns as well. Before I introduce our speakers, we do have an announcement to make. This year's Kansas Transit Manager training dates are out and open for registration. This training is available 3 times a year. The first one is in October of this year, the next is in February 2023, and the last one is in June of 2023. Each training course is divided into 2 parts, so make sure you register for both. Part 1 of October training is in October 17th, and the second part is October 24th. The link is posted in the chat box, or will be soon, so please do take a look. And now I'll go ahead and introduce our speakers. Today's webinar is presented by Taylor Zortman and Renee Hart from KDOT on BlackCat and NTD reporting. Our first speaker is Taylor, who is a program consultant at KDOT. She works with transit agencies who have been awarded the 5310 and 5311 grants, answering questions, reviewing reports, and gathering inspection data and repairs. Our next speaker is Renee Hart, who is the public transit manager at KDOT, providing an administrative oversight of KDOT's 5311 and 5310 programs, and is the source of administrative support to transit providers. In her previous role, she assisted 5311 agencies with federal NTD reporting requirements, and these responsibilities are being transitioned this year to Ryan Dowling, KDOT's multimodal planner. Welcome, and thank you, Taylor and Renee, for today's webinar, and I'll go ahead and hand the floor over to you guys.
Stop the video.
Oh, hello. So today we're just going to go over a couple of things for BlackCat first, including some navigation and some reporting. Let me go ahead and steal the laptop from Renee over here. Let's see if I can share my screen. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Yep.
That's great.
All right. So we're just going to go over some BlackCat information with you guys. So here is the BlackCat dashboard. This is where KDOT is going to put up any announcements we may have, reporting dates, just friendly information, anything that we may have and that we want you guys to know about, we're going to put here. Of course, our test site is not exactly up to date, but the live site should be. So this is just where we would ask you to go for some information that we may want you to know. From here, you're going to be navigating BlackCat based on these tabs at the very top of your screen. We are not going to go over applications today. This will be covered in a different webinar closer to application period in October. So be looking out for that. What we're going to mostly be going over today is the organization information. So from here, we're just going to go into organizations. And this is going to bring over your organization overview. We ask that you do your best to keep this as up to date as possible. Mostly on the organization information here at the top. Make sure that your primary contact information is always up to date, and I can show you how to make sure that it is. So we'll go into edit here. and you'll get to your contact information. Just make sure that your phone numbers are up to date, your email addresses. If you come down here, we'll just make sure that you fill out all of the information to the best of your ability. To change your primary contact, you'll use this drop down. You will normally have all of the contacts with access to BlackCat here. For this test agency, we only have George Washington here, so he has to be the primary contact. And then you'll save at the bottom when everything is up to date to the best of your knowledge. Okay. When getting into contact information, you'll come here to the side to the contacts, and you will see all of your contacts here. Again, right now we only have George Washington. To add a contact, you'll come over here to the add new, and you'll put in your contact information. I can't spell. So you'll put in their name. You only really need their name and their primary email address. To get the information up. If you ever want them to be a primary contact, you will need to fill this out more fully with their address and phone number, just so we have all of that information. The other thing that we ask that you do is give them titles or jobs. So to do that, you'll come over here to contact types, drop it down, and then you'll let us know what their job descriptions are. So that way, if we have a specific question we can ask the appropriate contact. If we do, I do ask that if you give them any titles that we may need in the future, you also maybe put a phone number here for them. So that way we can get a hold of them and based on more than just their email address. From here, you'll just save this information. Now, when you go back to contacts, you'll see that under user, it says in. This means that they do not have access to BlackCat. Now, the only people who can give access to BlackCat is the KDOT administrators. So if you need, if they need access to BlackCat, we ask that you email the KDOT inbox at kdottransit@ks.gov. And that is going to come to me, Renee, and Mandy, and we will be able to give them access to BlackCat from there. If you guys have had somebody leave, you will also email that KDOT inbox and we will deactivate their account. That will change this Y to an N. They will still be on your agency contact list for the duration, and we will take them off at KDOT discretion, but they won't have access to your organization information any longer. Okay. So from here, we can go and we can look up the inventories as well. This will just show you everything that is currently in your KDOT inventory, anything that you guys may need to report on. You guys won't be disposing or transferring of vehicles from here. That is all going to be done by KDOT. We have forms to fill out if you have any questions about that, or you are wanting to look at getting rid of a vehicle. We ask that you email the KDOT Transit inbox, and we will probably ask you a few questions and figure out what how we need to proceed from there based on your vehicle's information. Okay. So also on this side panel, you'll see calendar information. If it loads. On this calendar, it'll have any information. So any global events, like any trainings or anything else that can be seen by all agencies, they'll be here as long as you have this clicked. You can also use this to add your own information. So if you have a CTD meeting coming up and you want to make sure that that's in your calendar, you can do that. If you want to make it a public event where all agencies can see that, you can click this public event icon and save it, and then it'll be open for all agencies to see, not just yours. All right. So moving on, we're going to go to our reporting tab. Now, the first thing I will say is that all 5311 agencies that have been doing COVID reporting, that is no longer going to be a requirement. FTA has sent out a message stating that they are no longer requiring that. And so you guys have one less report you have to do every month. So from here, you'll have all your reporting here. These are going to be past reports that you have done, submitted. They're going to be returned, submitted, approved, or in progress. Is that in progress is the other status, I believe. To add a new report, you'll just come to this add report button. You'll select which report you would like to do. You'll select your contract and you'll select your contract year. And so we'll do the July report because I think I did August as a test earlier. And then you'll save it. So it'll create your report from here. So this is going to be the budget report. So in doing your budget report, you'll have, if you are a 5311 agency, you have both an operating and an admin. 5310s will only have an operating, and they will only submit theirs twice a year. 5311s will submit every month.
Can you ask questions?
If you have a question, please type it into the chat and we'll get to those at the end. Thank you. So when it comes to the budgets, you'll go ahead and you'll click on the budget report, and then you'll be able to select all of your items and put in your dollar amounts. So if you go over on one of your budgets, don't worry, as long as you still have money in your overall budget, you can move between line items. So let's say you have $26,000 in driver expenses. Instead of worrying about how you don't have money in the budget, you just won't spend as much maybe in your other section. So you'll be able to move between line items. You just cannot go over your overall dollar amount. Okay. When it comes to project income, this amount needs to match what is listed in your ridership fares. So we'll talk about that more when we get to the ridership reports, but all of your ridership fares need to match what is listed here. Okay. So we'll go down. When you have completed your report, I just ask that you double check everything that you have listed. And once everything looks correct, you're going to mark the report as complete. And when you do that, you'll save it. There we go. Move that over. All right. So when you have marked it as complete, it's going to pop up as a green check mark here. Now, this green check mark is going to tell you that it's good to go. You have double checked it and this one is ready. Then you'll move on to your project admin report. So from here, you're going to go ahead and put in all of your admin expenses. Anything that is listed in the other section of both your admin report and your operating report does need to have other documentation. Once you have double checked all of your amounts here, you'll click that button saying that everything is complete to the best of your knowledge, and you'll save this one as well. and it'll pop up. So when you put anything in your other sections on either the operating or the admin, or your KPTA meeting expenses or anything like that that requires additional documentation, this is where you will go to list that documentation. So you'll put in the name of your document, and then you'll choose your file. Did you put a test document in here?
On the desktop.
Yeah.
It's NTD. NTD 2022.
I don't see it.
NTD.
Okay. So you'll put it in here and then you'll click upload. Once it is uploaded, then it'll pop up down here. You can still add any additional documentation that you have. And then from here, you'll say, click here stating that everything is uploaded, all your additional documentation is in there, and all of your line items are up to date to the best of your ability and knowledge. And then from there, you will click submit to submit your report. Okay. So that would be the budget report. So we will move on to the DBE report. From here, you'll get into the report the same way you did your budget report. You'll just select a different reporting type and you'll save, and this will start your report. So here you will click the DBE and it'll bring up your line items. So you'll put in all of your vendors, your maintenance, your insurance, anything that you have that is an expense. So let's say you went to Quick Shop for gas and you went there 56 times. So you'll put in how many times you went to that vendor for the month, and then you'll put the grand total of the amount. Not so you don't have to put in every single time you went to Quick Shop, and then you'll add that amount. All right, and the same with the maintenance vendor, you will put in all of the vendor information and then the grand total of the amount for each vendor. Right, if you have an expense from the maintenance section that is over $1,500, you will need to upload additional documentation. That documentation is going to include your approval email from KDOT. You can get those from by emailing the KDOT transit at ks.gov requesting the maintenance. And we will let you know if we will approve it or not. And then we will also need the invoice from that maintenance expense. And so you'll upload that in the additional documentation here. After everything is uploaded and all of your maintenance is in here, you'll submit. And that is your DBE report. So next we'll do the ridership report. Now the ridership report is going to be updating soon. We're actually not sure when those updates are going to be put in place by BlackCat. So we're going to go over both. Did I already have the July report in? Okay, well, we'll just do October. Okay, well, it's not going to let me do it until the September report's approved. So we'll just go over the September report. So this is the ridership report. When you click in here, you are going to be looking at this screen. So these items need to match these items except for the non-transit. So everything from the work, education, medical, and other needs to add up to the same amount as the general public, disabled, and elderly sections. Okay? Now, if you have a passenger that they fit into 2 of these categories, only put them in one. If they are both elderly and disabled, they should go into the disabled category. All right. Now, the non-emergency medical transportation, this is for any trips paid by Medicaid. They are not for doctor's appointments. Those will go under the medical trips. All right. Now, the fare box donation revenue, this is what I was talking about on the budget report. This amount should match what is listed in your budget project income on your operating report. If it does not match, I will be sending an email to you to see which one of your reports needs to be returned for corrections. Now, if you are accepting donations for trips, those are still going to be counted as fares and will need to be put into your fare box donation revenue. All right. Now, when it comes to this section, you will have to fill out each and every piece of this to be able to submit this report. Even if you don't have anything to put in, you will have to put in at least a 0. If you do not, then it will not let you submit your report. All right. From here, once you have stated that everything is up to date and correct to the best of your knowledge, you'll click mark this report as complete and you will submit. Once you have done that, you will see a green check mark pop up here. Anything that needs to be uploaded will be uploaded, and you'll click this check mark saying that everything is complete to the best of your knowledge, and you will submit the whole report. Okay. Last but not least, we have our vehicle report. Just go ahead and create that report real quick. So this should be your easiest report. All you'll have to do is record your ending odometer readings. So let's say you went a couple of hundred of miles on vehicle ending in 2992. Instead of putting in 500, you will put in the ending odometer reading, and it will calculate the ending mile or the monthly mileage for you. Same goes with this one. Say I didn't go anywhere. This one stayed in the shop the entire time. I'll put in the ending odometer reading and it'll turn out to be 0. All right. When it comes to this, I do need you guys to double check these totals. If I have to return these, or if they have to be returned after being approved, then that causes a lot more issues later. So to unapprove a report, we have to submit a request to BlackCat and have their programmers go in through the back end to get those unapproved and sent back to you. Once these numbers are updated and approved once again, because of the way the system works, we then have to submit another request to go in and update the next month's report before you start it. Otherwise, these monthly beginning odometer readings are going to be wrong. So we need you to double check this information before submitting. I don't have your vehicles in front of me, so I cannot tell you if these are correct. All I can do is say, this looks like it would be average for your agency, so this looks like it could be correct. Once you have those, you are going to click this button stating that everything is correct and up to date to the best of your knowledge, and you will submit that report or save that report. When it's saved, it'll pop up green And then you'll click this stating that you have double checked everything and you'll submit. Okay. And then all of your reports should be turned in to us. And then we'll review them and we will be able to go and return them if they need any corrections. You'll be able to see that the status here will say returned. If you do have any additional questions, BlackCat also automatically sends an email to the person listed down here as whoever submitted the report. Okay. So any additional information that you might need when it comes to BlackCat is going to be in your resources tab here. It will show any documents that KDOT has listed. I think Renee has the NTD reporting documents in here right now on the live site. So be looking out for those for any additional information that you need. From there, I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Renee, and she is going to go over NTD with you. Oh.
All right. First of all, National Transit Database is an annual reporting requirement that is mandated by Congress. And so it is something that each state DOT has to do. And we collect that data from the transit agencies and we submit it to NTD on your behalf. And it collects ridership data and financial data. And what I'm going to do, we have kicked off the NTD reporting period for 2022, which covers July 1st of 2021 through June 30th of 2022. And I am going to walk through where to find your NTD report that is specific to your agency based on the modes of transportation that you have reported in the past. Okay, so if you go to the resources tab and pull up, there's only one agency in here, but you would select your organization. And there will be an NTD file in here. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add that file here because once you download that file, you will need to fill it out and complete it, and then you will need to upload it. So I'm going to show you now how to upload it. So you would go to add. You would select file. And we're going to give it the file name, and it's going to have your agency name, and then it would be 2022 NTD. Choose file. Wherever you have it saved on your computer, that is where you would go to find it. You would select it, and you would save it. Okay, so when you go into your organization library on your agency, you'll see your report there. Then you can click on it. It'll show up under the downloads. Open the file. And then you will want to save this on your computer. I'm going to go over the form. There's several tabs here just for general information about what we are looking for. So on the modal information on your left-hand side, these are the modes that your agency has provided in the past. This is demand response service. If you have provided fixed route service, it will show up as MB. This column here is the total of all of your funds that you have spent on your operations. It is the sum of all of your fare revenue that you have spent on operation, as well as all of the funds that are expended on this funding sources tab. If they don't match, then it will not be accepted. So you may want to go ahead and fill out the fare revenues and the funding sources first, find out what your total is, and then enter it into operations. So the fare revenues, passenger paid fares. This is fares that you collect on the bus or any donations that your driver accepts would go here. Organization paid fares. These are fares that a third party pays, such as if you have a health department or a social service agency that is paying for the fares of their clients or people that they are helping. That is where you would enter this. Also, if you do non-emergency medical transportation that is paid for or reimbursed by Medicaid, you would want to include that here under organization paid fares. Funds expended on capital. This is all of your vehicle purchases. So this year, we know that we have awarded many of you vehicles, but if you have not paid for those vehicles, then you would not enter that information yet. Okay, so on to funding sources. So this is all of the other funding sources, other directly generated funds. This would be any program income that you bring in, any donations that are given to your agency to use at your discretion that are not tied to a particular ride. Revenues accrued through a purchase transportation agreement. So if you as an agency pay for another agency to provide trips on your behalf, you would record that here. This local funds, of course, is your local match, but it also includes any local funds above what you have spent for your required match. State funds are the funds that KDOT provides. And then other funds, this would be anything that is not generated by your agency. So you would just enter that in and then it would pop up and it would want to know an explanation. Below is all of the federal funds that are available. And this is a report that's used for all agencies. Many of these will not apply to you. The ones that you will be concerned with is the scrolling down, there's so many of them. The CARES Act Rural Area Program Funds. This would be for part of the year. We use the CARES funding through January of 2022. In February, we opened up your 5311 grant. So you would record the rest of your 5311 under the FTA Rule 5311. Looking for that one here, this FTA formula grants for rural areas. So this line 32 and the 38 are the only ones here under this federal section that you should be filling out. Unless you also received or spent 5310 money, you would need to record that here. And then it will give you a total. Other resources. So if you have volunteer drivers, that's where this goes, and your number of personal vehicles in service, this should be 0. You shouldn't have any personal vehicles that you are operating in our service. Annual service data for demand response, and if you provide fixed route, you would also have a line here for fixed route, but for demand response here, you would record your revenue miles, your vehicle revenue miles. So that is miles that you have driven that where you are providing service. So if you take somebody and you take them to an appointment and you do not go back to a dispatching point and you wait for them, then I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. That would be a revenue hour while you wait. The miles start when you pick up your first passenger. And then when you drop off your last passenger, when you go back to dispatching. So the annual vehicle hours are those hours that you are providing the service. And like I said, if you are waiting for somebody, that wait time would be considered revenue hours. If you, if it's just downtime, you wouldn't count it if you were on lunch or on your way back when you're not carrying any passengers, when you're closed door, or when you don't have the expectation to be called. Passenger trips, that's the number of passenger trips that you provide. A trip is each time a passenger boards the bus. So if they go to multiple locations and they get on the bus and off the bus several times, each of those is considered a passenger trip. Annual vehicles and maximum service. This is the number of vehicles that you operate on the busiest day at peak service time for the year, but it does not include any like special events that might be going on. And then sponsored trips, UPT, these are the trips that are paid for by a third party. So earlier when we looked at the modal information here, we had organization paid fares. This data is the trips that those fares paid for. And then safety, reportable incidents. The reportable incident is anything if your vehicle is disabled, requires towing, if it requires repairs over $25,000, if anybody requires medical treatment on the scene, or if there is a fatality. So then you would, fatalities and injuries here associated with that reportable incident. And that is, that concludes the NTD portion. So I guess we are ready for questions.
Hi, Renee. It's Barbara Lillyhorn at RTAP, and I turned in my report, and Rin has been corresponding back and forth with me. And one of the things that he found was that the federal admin portion was not what NTD had recorded for us, but it was recorded at 100% funding beginning July 1st and running through January, just like ops. And we did not receive 100% funding. So the last correspondence I had with him was that I couldn't find deposits that would support that. And I sent him all the reports, the final summaries from our CTD to show him the payments that we had received. So I don't know, I'm hoping that RTAP is the only one that fell into that situation, but I wanted to let you know about that.
Okay, thank you for letting me know. I know I spoke with Ryan briefly about that when we were going through some of the reports and trying to make sure that the numbers lined up. So we will, I will look into that and I can let the agencies know if it's an issue for other agencies.
We do have some more questions in the chat if no one else has questions they'd like to say aloud. I'll go back to the beginning. Michelle Griffin asked, do you have written instructions? You did cover that. She also asked, who do you want listed as the primary contact for BlackCat?
Who do we want listed as the primary contact? Is that what
Right.
That's what the question is?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay, so that would be whoever would be, you would want like your transportation manager, or who will be doing your reporting, who Taylor should contact for questions, just the first point of contact. If you have additional people that have BlackCat access that we may need to contact, they can be added as additional contacts and then the role selected. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay.
I also additionally, I send out monthly updates on where you guys are at in your reporting. That goes to the main contact. I have had some people ask if they can add multiple people to that update. The short answer for that is the way that I have it set up is through an Excel Word mail merge, and I cannot add additional contacts to that for your agency without duplicating all of your information, and that may create additional complications when it comes to the accuracy of that email.
Okay. We also had a few questions from Joyce. I believe she's putting them in the chat now, but I can see those aloud. So on administrative section of budget report, I thought Taylor said we need to submit documentation on admin expenses. I've never done that. Should I start? I would submit documentation for other services.
Right. So on the admin report, anything that goes under the section for other needs to have an explanation to go with it. Whether that be an Excel document where you just list everything out and then add it together. And those numbers need to match what is in your other section. If any additional documentation is needed, such as receipts or invoices, those are mostly going to be on those large purchase budget, or those large purchases that you have to have approval for. And those approval emails, as well as those invoices, will also need to be uploaded. For everything else, I just need an explanation of what is listed in this other section.
Okay, but you do not need proof of the administrative costs. Is that correct? That was my question.
When you say proof of the administrative cost, are you talking about like the postage and the copies and then the manager's salary?
Yes, the payroll information is what we currently submit. Okay.
No, I do not need that information. It's just anything that's listed in other.
Joyce, did you want to share your other questions that you had for Taylor?
Yeah, I can do that. On the DBE report, so I kind of got thrown into this going on 4 years ago, and I never had any training. So I'm very thankful that we finally have something that goes through all of this for me. On the DBE report, what I was trained on with the limited training I had was I only submit that for the fuel expenses and the fuel vendors and our total. I've not put my maintenance things on there. I put the maintenance documentation on my budget report.
Right. So when it comes to the individual maintenance, even the small costs, the DBE report is just going to break that down a little further than the budget report. And so ideally, you need to put that in your DBE report as well. If it's anything over $1,500 for a single purchase, then the approval email I like to have uploaded in the DBE, whereas the budget reports have so much information for everything in there. The DBE report is just easier for me to go through all of those approvals.
Okay, I'll start doing that. Thank you. Okay, I'm sorry. I did have one more question.
No
So
problem.
you mentioned on the Ridership Report, the trip type needs to equal the trip purpose.
Right.
So
And we are going to be making that easier in the future. We are rolling out a new ridership report that's going to give you the totals and add those together for you. So we're not sure when BlackCat's rolling that out. Hopefully it's during the September report, but it could be the month after.
okay, so right now I'm wondering if I've been doing this wrong all along, because the way I was told that the trip type, so let's say I had one disabled rider and they had 4 separate trips that day, or 4 stops where they got on and off the bus. I would record that as one trip type, with 4 trip purposes. But I think you said they need to match.
They do. So every
the-
time they get on and off the bus, they need to be recorded.
Right, but as far as the trip type, I guess I'm still confused on what the trip type is for.
That just lets us know where they're going. So are you taking them to the doctor? It needs to go under medical. Are you taking them to work? That needs to be recorded under work.
Okay.
If you
Yes,
are,
sorry. Okay, so the trip type, so maybe they had 2 doctor appointments. I would be putting that down as 1 trip type, but 2 trip purposes. So apparently I've not been doing that right.
they need to match. So if they get
Okay.
on and off the bus and you're recording them twice, then you need to record the purpose twice as well. Because they could be going to a doctor's appointment and then you could be taking them to work. So you'll record one as medical and the other as work.
Yes, and I've been doing that as far as the breakdown, but if they had, say they went, I'm trying to think, if they went to the doctor and then they had a shopping trip, that would be 2 trip purposes. But if they actually went to 4 different places to shop.
Every time they get on and off the bus, they need to be
Okay.
recorded.
All right.
And
Okay.
I understand
Doing it
it's been
right.
confusing for a lot of people, which is why it's been, we've been giving some leeway. That's why we've also been working on updating the ridership report.
All right, I appreciate this. It's really helped me a lot. Thank you.
We have some more questions in the chat as well. Do the 5310s have to do the NTD report?
No, they don't. This is only for the 5311 agencies. And then I also saw a question in the chat that from 5311 agencies regarding my comment that if they spent 5310 to include that. Agencies in Kansas do not receive 5310 for operating from us. We use state funds for that purpose. So you would not include that. But if you were to receive 5310 federal funds, then you would need to report it. But that would be rarely the case, if ever.
Okay. Another question from Abigail. NTD report incidents. Would that include vehicles that were taken out of the service due to insurance totaling out the vehicle?
Are you speaking on the NTD report for the safety portion with the reportable incidents? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah,
Abigail, okay.
yeah, because at the time the vehicle was drivable and it was fixable, they just didn't see the amount being fixed. It was like over $1,100 or $11,000, so they didn't want to pay that because the vehicle wasn't worth that. So then they totaled it out. So when we did the reporting for the vehicle was still able to go back in service at some point after getting the body fixed until insurance totaled out the vehicle. So I didn't know if it would go under the reportable incidents as one.
That's a good question. Was if the vehicle had to be towed, then
No,
it would be a reportable incident.
right.
And then if the repairs were over 25,000, that would be a reportable incident. With it being totaled and it not going, I would say that you would need to report it, because if what you received from the insurance would exceed 25,000, then you would want to report it. But
Well, what we're receiving is less than that as well.
okay, then you would not need to.
But I do know that we do have to report it because it's over the 5,000 mark of what we would be receiving. So it's over 5, but under 25.
For the reportable incidents for NTD purposes, the cutoff is 25,000.
Okay, but just the 5 for KDOT reporting as normal.
Yes.
Thank you.
We have another question. How do I know if I filled the NTD out correctly?
If it is incorrect, Ryan or myself will be reaching out to you.
Okay, some other questions. So someone that is elderly as well as disabled, you want them counted as disabled, not elderly. And then also, can you explain the difference between handicapped and disabled?
Yeah, so if they fall into two categories, if they're elderly and disabled, we're going to go ahead and count that as one category. So preferably disabled will be the one that trumps all the others. If they're general public and disabled, you'll put them under disabled. If they're elderly and disabled, you'll put them under disabled. If they're general public and they're elderly, you'll put them under elderly. They just need to be in one category. That way we can count the rider as one instead of two. Now, if they're handicapped, I believe they still get put under disabled. Is that correct?
Yes, if they are visibly disabled and you can tell, you would mark them as disabled, but you wouldn't want to ask somebody.
If you're unsure, put them under general public or elderly.
And then I think there's just one more question in the chat. Oh, never mind. When you say reportable, is there a form that is filled out or just on BlackCat end of month reports?
It is just on the just on the BlackCat reports. There's no form for reportable incidents. Now, if you know, we do want to be aware of any time a vehicle is an incident and there is a vehicle, and I forget what it is called, but there is a form on our website that you would need to fill out kind of when the incident happened, what happened, and then to show us graphically where the damage is.
Okay, and we have a few more questions that came in after that. I always break out our non-ambulatory on the ridership report under the non-ambulatory. Should they be put under disabled or okay to leave as non-ambulatory?
So the non-ambulatory is going to be separate from the other categories. We are actually planning on moving that out of the trip purpose just to reduce confusion. The non-ambulatory is going to be for any rides paid by Medicaid. So if they are the trip purpose.
I'm gonna share, let's go back to that screen.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you're gonna exit. Okay, yeah.
Okay, so the non-ambulatory trips, these are just trips that are taken where they need assistance getting on or off the bus, whether it is through you know, a wheelchair or some type of mobility device. When we are talking about non-emergency medical transportation, that again is the Medicaid reimbursed trips, and they may or may not be disabled or non-ambulatory. The changes that we are going to be making is we're going to create a separate section over here with a heading for these third-party trips, these non-emergency medical trips, and these third-party trips to get them out of there, so that you would have a subtotal here. And then this non-ambulatory trips is a totally separate section as well. And it just looks at whether or not they need assistance walking and able to get onto the bus. Does that answer the question?
Yes, it does.
Renee, this is Barbara in Reno County again, and if I understand you correctly, those non-ambulatory trips are counted separate and away from the categories of general public, elderly, and disabled. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, we have another question on the ridership report. Is the non-ambulatory where we put the wheelchair riders?
Yes.
Did you answer that? Okay. And then, if it is just a breakdown not due to accident, still reportable, but do not have to fill out the form, correct?
No, you do not have to fill out the form.
Does anyone have any other questions?
This is Maria from Futures in Wellington. I do have a clarification question on the NTD report. I didn't know if Renee, you could pull up the funding sources spreadsheet.
Okay.
Yeah, right there. So under the non-federal funds, where we have the state funds,
Yes.
the non-federal. So up here where it says state funds, obviously, like you just said, our 5310 does not include any federal funds, but it does have state funds. So so you don't want to see our $5310 in that state funds column because they are state funds.
I'm trying to think of how those are reported. The state funds are typically, they would be your 5310 funds if you operate 5310 service and 5311 service.
Right. We do operate both 5310 and 5311. And so under the state funds, I had the 5311 funds, but then I realized that maybe I needed to include my 5310 state funds in that line item right there. I mean, obviously I don't have any down below under the federal for 5310.
I would say at this point, no, we will keep that separate, but that's a good question.
Okay, so on the federal side, you do want to see 5310 if there were any, as well as 5311. But on the non-federal side, you don't want to see 5310 funds on the state.
Correct.
Okay, I can do that. Thank you.
I may have to look at that and send out a clarification, but if I'm understanding correctly, that is the case.
Renee?
Yes.
Renee?
Yes.
This is Lori Jackson, OCCK. On
Okay.
that same page, where do you put the capital assistance for 5311?
The capital assistance.
Am I not? Capital
So
assistance.
I'm
not seeing it. What I'm seeing is the capital. What I'm seeing is capital assistance spent on operations. Is that what you wanted?
If you have 5311 capital funds, you would enter it on the same line item 32, but just on the funds expended on capital column.
Where was that line again? Sorry. Oh, gotcha. Okay, got it. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, if everyone feels like their questions have been answered, of course, you can always reach out to me, or I'm sure Renee and Taylor would be happy to answer more of your questions at a later time. But
Yeah, if you wanted to also, if you have additional NTD questions or anything, you can always go to the NTD website, and they have past webinars that they have put on, as well as the reporting, the reduced reporting guide is out there too. So
yeah, and I put in the chat box earlier our RTAP, our KUTC YouTube channel. And this webinar is being recorded and will be put on there. So if you wanted to reference some of the questions that have been answered today, you can always revisit that recording. And there's also some other helpful resources on there, so please check out our YouTube page. Thank you so much, Renee and Taylor, for your time. That was very informative. I hope everyone enjoyed this webinar. Thank you,
Thank
guys.
you.
And have a great day.